This is Lit, the Derrick Sue podcast, where we explore purpose, potential, and the human condition. And hopefully uncover some new ways of being and doing in the process. Jump in and join me for a deep dive with my special guests each and every episode for some revelatory, stimulating, and sometimes scintillating conversation. All right, it's time to get lit. Let's do this. Hello and welcome to episode 4. I'm Derrick Sue, and today I'm thrilled to be sharing my conversation with someone I've wanted on the show from the very beginning, Joshua Simon. He's a Singaporean radio DJ, singer-songwriter, filmmaker, and media personality. He has over a decade of experience on the mic and has interviewed some of the biggest stars on the planet, including Katy Perry, Britney Spears, Hugh Jackman, and Reynolds. On today's episode, he's sharing his incredible journey, his interview process, his experiences of living in the spotlight, cancel culture, thoughts on authenticity, and so much more. I always leave Josh feeling a little bit better about myself, and I think you will too. We recorded this episode way back in June 2021, so I am a little ashamed that it's taken me so long to bring this online. But hey, we're here now, and that's what matters. So a big thank you for your patience and for tuning in. Before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes. All right, I think we're ready now. Let's roll.
All right, good morning and welcome to the show, Josh.
Good morning. Do you see my cup that I'm holding up?
Yes.
Is it inverted? Okay, it says a cup full of...
It's a good way to start the morning.
Yeah, a cup full of motivation. It's coffee from my new coffee machine that I just purchased.
Not that you'd need motivation, because you're someone that has done so much in like a decade or however long you've been working.
Oh, that's very nice. But no, I concur. Is that the right word? I concur. No,
I'm not quite sure what you're trying to say.
Big words for a big boy. I think I feel like I need to amp up my journaling in the morning and like morning devotions or something. I feel like I need to do that more.
You know, I think
Actually,
I like this thing you're talking about, journaling, and I want to come back to that.
Sure.
But I want to start off just by saying thank you so much for being part of this podcast. You're one of the first people I wanted to be on this podcast when I first thought about doing this a year ago. And it's not because you are someone who has been in the media spotlight with, nearly a decade of experience every day on the mic, interviewing some of the biggest stars in the world. Not because of that. It's because, to me, you really represent what it means to be human. Like, you really, if there was like an alien that was to come onto the planet and I wanted to show them a specimen of the human species, I would push you forward, because I really feel that you like represent, just the wholeness, not necessarily just all the good stuff, but it's kind of like you're very whole and authentic in the way that I've seen you, from when I first met you to, seeing you progress through your career, seeing your social media posts. Yeah, to me, you're just like one of the most authentic people that I know.
Thank you. You're very, very kind. I don't know about the alien stuff because I'm not sure if you've been reading, but didn't like Obama confirm that we've been getting like UFOs through the years, and it's so true. He confirmed the existence of UFOs. And I mean, I'm in that place in my life right now where I'm also like, I'm learning like stocks and trading, and I feel quite stupid actually. So I'm starting to, like, I kid you not, like 2 nights ago I said a prayer, and I think my prayer was about how I feel like I'm not cut out for this world, because I've been watching a lot of content from traders as well. Like, it's a different side of YouTube that I didn't know exists, where they go on every single day when the stock market opens and they just go live and they go through all these different trades that people are into right now, a lot of meme stocks. And the way they talk and the kind of moves that they make, the way business people do business people, if you understand, right? It's just, I feel like I can't do any of that. Like, I can't make these kind of moves, and So I don't know if I don't know if I'm a good representation of Hugh. I'll be an awkward representation. Okay, so I'll
Look,
be like maybe five people
you're
go and
talking
meet
about
the
like
aliens.
you're talking about like a super skill set in terms of like stocks and stuff. I'm just more representing you, just as, and I understand what you're saying because when you jump into something completely new, you're just out of the water. Totally understand that.
Yeah,
But for me, you've like someone that has lived pretty much what you do all your life, and I guess that's part of the reason why you've been so successful at it. Is because you've had that really early passion in the whole media thing, music, movies, everything like that. And I actually wanted
thank
to
you.
probably start off on that point because you are someone who has honed your craft for a very long time, whether it has been like informally or formally. Because to
Hmm.
me, when I first met you, you seem to have a very natural affinity or talent in terms of speaking and being able to entertain, just off the cuff. Nothing was prepared. It feels like you're able to do it all natural. And I really admired that kind of that skill that you had, and that's translated super well in all the great interviews that you've done. I in preparation for this interview, I revisited some of the great interviews you have done with a bunch of of stars in the world, and I thought this would be a really good place to start because you could probably impart some words of wisdom to me to ensure that this interview goes as smooth as it can. Coming from someone who's on the mic practically nearly every day for the last decade or whatever. And I'm just like fresh back on the mic after an 8-year absence. and I only did 8 months myself on the radio, so I have nowhere near the experience that you have. So let's talk about your interviews that you've had. Who was the first like interview that you did where you went, wow, I can't believe I'm having this opportunity to talk to this person?
Actually, so I started radio about, I'm going 10 years now, right? So right after I did the army thing that every Singaporean has to do, I studied film, which is how you and I met, and I was doing film stuff behind the camera, not in front of the camera. I always wanted to do stuff in front, but I thought, okay, the universe is telling me that you're not cut out for it, that you don't look like all these people on the magazine, so we're just gonna put you at the back. And then the universe also put a microphone at the back. And I thought, okay, let's do that. Let's do that. I'm just gonna speak from behind, and that way I don't have to dress up too much. I guess that's okay. So I started doing radio 2011, I think, 2011, and I. It was very, I think, clear to everyone, my colleagues, my boss, that I love pop culture, right? Live and breathe pop culture. Consume it daily. I read up on it heavily the moment I wake up because you wake up in Singapore time, it's morning, and then it's nighttime in America, so you just get all the fresh news. And I always just get so like mesmerized by how like, oh my God, while I'm sleeping, so much crazy things have happened. I've always been that kid, and when I started doing radio, apart from just trying to get a hang of how a radio show works in Singapore, whenever there's an opportunity for like a press conference or a round table or a one-on-one interview, I'd be the first to raise my hand because I'm like, oh my God, I love this person, even if I've only heard one song. So I was like, oh my God, I love them. So I think the first artist I think I interviewed, if I remember correctly, is Far East Movement. So they're like a group. They got that song like a G6 that was blowing up in that period. Um, yeah, Asian American, right? Asian American act, and I thought that was absolutely brilliant. So I did an interview with them, and we had a blast. They could tell that I was a fan, but I also had a lot of questions for them that like I just really wanted to peek inside of what it really is like to be in their position. So a lot of the questions and sort of the flair that I had with interviews at the start of my career was a mixture of I've always wanted to be like you and I want to know what it really is like. So a lot of the questions came from that very genuine, I want to know what it's like. What is it like behind the curtain of Oz? And also it was a mixture of oh my God, I'm such a fan and I want to make sure you have a good time. And I don't want to walk away from this interview feeling like I did a crap job. Because I also wanted to show my bosses in the radio station that I want to do this more. So I think it was Far East Movement. And then it gave me a chance to interview Katy Perry in Tokyo. Now that one blew my mind. So that one was very, there were a couple of interviews in my career that were big game changers for me with how my career ended up becoming, but also with how I am with my craft, with interviewing. So the Katy Perry one was really, uh, it was really, it left quite an impression on me. It was in Tokyo. It was my first time in Tokyo,
Yeah,
and
that would have been amazing. I mean, how early was that? Was that like in your first year of radio you get to do this, or
I,
when?
I, I think it was my second year. It might have been my second year. It might have been my second year. It was during the Prism album, so it was right after Teenage Dream, which was one of the biggest selling albums, right? And I think at that point she was like the number one most followed person on like social media and stuff. So here I am, just starting out in my career, now speaking to the biggest star on the planet, right? And
That's amazing.
yeah, but also the pressure was insane. I just remember the interview went really well. I can give you a bit of detail on that, but I remember also right after the interview, just sitting. I sat on the chair in the middle of my hotel room and I just didn't move for about an hour. And then I went into the bathtub and I stayed in the bathtub for another hour. And it wasn't like, oh my God, bubble bath. It was just, my whole body was just cold, filled with anxiety. I was just like, did it go well? What just happened? I just interviewed Katy Perry. I don't really remember what's going on, but I think I have everything. Did I forget anything? Did I remember to press record? All of that. So I just and that's a very recurring thing for me in the bathtub in the hotel rooms that I'm flown to like in that country because I'm always traveling to all these different places and I'm traveling by myself. So a lot of time is spent either walking or just riddled with anxiety in the bathtub. But what everyone else sees is like, oh my God, wonderful interview. So the Katy
But
Perry one,
that anxiety is after the interview, though.
it's most of the time it's after the interview. Before the interview, it's a lot of I will have to do this. I have to do this. You know, as scared as I am, as terrified or as nervous as I am, I need to just command my feet forward. That's like the thing I always tell myself. Like since I was a kid, I did a hosting gig once when I was like in kindergarten. I remember I was in kindergarten and there was like a neighborhood concert, like a singing contest, like a talent time contest, and I was supposed to be the host for that, and I was struggling to memorize my script because they gave. Now that I think about it, I was a kindergarten kid. I had so much to memorize, and and I remember writing some stuff on my hand, and I was so afraid to just take the like the 3 steps up to the stage, and I would just like command my feet to move. Okay, like as scared as I am.
This is
Just like
kindergarten. This is like you're 4 years old or
I
something.
remember that. Yeah, it has to be kindergarten because it was in the same neighborhood. Because I had like my kindergarten was like right below my apartment block, and we had like a little showcase there. And I remember it's so strange how memories work, right? You don't remember so much of your life as a child, but then these random memories just stick out. So I remember walking up that stage and actually acing the entire hosting gig. But then my co-host kept messing up her lines. She was this poor girl. She just kept she couldn't remember the song that she was supposed to introduce the next act that they were gonna sing, and I was trying to help her out. I just remember that moment. Sorry, I digress. Um, yeah, Tokyo was incredible. I think I was also just excited to go to Tokyo because I didn't come from like from a lot in I guess for Singapore average, you know, I'm a little bit under below the average. And growing up, Tokyo was always this place that my parents told me was way too expensive for us to ever go to. So to finally make it to Tokyo after watching Lost in Translation, which is one of my favorite films of all time, and to have that interview be done at the Park Hyatt where they filmed Lost in Translation, it just felt like the stars aligning. And it was, had I known then that the universe was saying that, okay, you're going to be doing this a lot more, so you're going to have to start being comfortable with all this, being alone in a different country, feeling lonely at times, feeling nervous, but also being able to snap out of it. Yeah, The Katy Perry one was really, yeah, that was the one that, to me, I think that was the one that really got us started.
Yeah, that's incredible. Especially, exactly everything you mentioned, that she was like the biggest pop star at that time, and you second year fresh out of army and school,
Yeah.
thrust into that position. How did that come about? Like, do you know how those stars got aligned? What was the magic behind that?
I think the radio station gets a lot of requests for interviews, right? For bands, for artists that are promoting a new project. So for Katy Perry, it was her Prism album at that time. And Roar had just come out. Roar had just come out, which is the lead single for that album. And I think I'm not gonna say that, oh, I was the first pick to do the interview. I really have a feeling like I was one of the last people to get asked to do this. Fortunately, I also come from a radio station where most of my colleagues are much older. They have families, they've got kids, they've got side hustles and stuff. And for them to fly to another country to do an interview, they're gracious enough to be like, we'll let the kid do it. So, so I think I genuinely think it's a mixture of that, and also he also really wants to do it. We should just let him do it and hope he doesn't mess it up. If he messes it up, we'll give it to someone else. So thankfully, I didn't mess it up, and it was for Universal Music. So Katy's managed by Universal. So they really liked the interview, and they kept calling me back for future interviews after. So a lot of the interviews that I've had then through the years came from good relationships with movie companies or labels that like what I can offer. It's got very little to do with, thankfully, very little to do with how many followers does Josh have? What is the reach that we're gonna get from this interview? It's with 20th Century Fox, which unfortunately doesn't exist as 20th Century Fox in its original form anymore. Warner Brothers is great, and shout out to Universal Music. So through the years, they've just been. We know when we get Josh to do it, we know what we're getting from Josh. So we're just going to let him do his thing. So, yeah.
That's awesome. And I have to say, that's the thing I've noticed with a lot of the feedback or reviews on YouTube, is that they constantly just mention, oh, wow, Josh does his interviews so fresh. He's so genuine. He's so kind. It doesn't feel like an interview. It feels like a conversation.
Yeah.
They're the kind of things I keep reading in the interviews of people that you have had the chance to speak with.
Yeah, thank you. I've always been a very curious kid, and it used to get me. Yeah, it used to get me into a lot of trouble because I grew up in a church. My dad's a pastor, and I would ask a lot of questions that you were not supposed to ask as a child. You're just supposed to love Jesus and go to heaven and make other people Christians too. But I was always asking questions, and in school I was like that as well. I was always asking questions. And I think for me with interviews, the ones that I really enjoy and the ones that people end up really enjoying are the interviews where I genuinely have things to ask and I'm curious about these things. So I had to unlearn a lot of things that also my industry peers were teaching me that may work for them. Granted, it may work for them. It just like, oh, we have to do this interview because we want to get this viral moment. So you need to say this thing or provoke them to get this answer. A lot of that journalism 101, ask the uncomfortable question. Don't care if they feel uncomfortable. You've got the moment. So a lot of things like that where I was taught these things, and then there were a couple of interviews that I have done where I tried to do these things and I just felt so uncomfortable trying to ask about someone's love life or like why they divorced and stuff. It may work for some people because they know how to do it well. It just has never really worked for me because I genuinely don't really want to know about their divorce, So it's little things like that where it's a mixture of, and it's like that in anyone's job, right? In your career, it's where you come in and everyone's going to tell you how you're supposed to do things, and the school tells you this is what you're supposed to do, and then you need to figure out where you come in. And for me, it's a lot of going back to I've always been a curious kid, and people always kind of told me that I should stop asking questions. But I've always felt, even as a child, that my questions were valid, and I really wanted to know the answers to these questions. So I'm just going to focus on that curiosity, while at the same time also producing the segment to ensure that it's entertaining for everyone.
Where did
So
you
it's
get
not
that
too self-indulgent.
where'd you get that confidence to have this unshakable belief that your questions were valid when you're getting so much feedback from people telling you not to ask those questions, to shut up effectively?
See, I even think of it as confidence. I just thought of it as I genuinely don't know the answer to this and I want to know, because if you don't know something, you ask questions, right? That's kind of what you're told when you're very young. But then what you're not told after is that when you ask questions, sometimes people might just shut you down and make you feel really stupid. And they'll kind of like tell you, don't ask questions anymore. So I don't know. I would say my confidence comes from actually wanting to know the answers, because they spur and they kind of grow from like actual thoughts and conversations that I have with myself about something. And if it isn't important to me, then I wouldn't ask, right? It's something that has been like swirling in my head, and I want to genuinely know how a black hole works. So I'm gonna ask about it. So if someone tells me like, don't ask about black holes, I'm still gonna be like, but I'm still thinking about black holes. Yeah.
And I'm not going to stop till I know.
Yeah. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's been some of the most enjoyable interviews you've had? Who have they been with?
Okay. So I'm gonna share with you something really fun. So my most watched interview is the one that I did for The Greatest Showman. So this is story time, ladies and gentlemen. This is a story and a half.
We're in for a treat.
You're in for a treat. I've done an interview with Hugh Jackman about. I've done about 4 interviews with Hugh Jackman so far, if I can remember, right? And each one is really special. The first one was a press conference when I was still just one journalist and a sea of journalists in a press conference, and he was there for X-Men Days of Future Past. And what happened was I had one chance to ask a question, so I thought I'd do a joke question, right? So I said I don't want to talk to Hugh Jackman. No offense. I know you're really cool and all, but I'm a big X-Men fan. I want to speak to Logan for a bit. Can I speak to Wolverine? Could you get into Wolverine mode for me, sir? And then he went full on. He played along, which is what I really love about this guy. He played along. He got what I was trying to do, and he thought, let me entertain Singapore today. So he got into Logan mode, and he started making fun of me. And he said, meet me backstage, come over. And he got off stage, so everyone just started freaking out. Like, you can see the organizers going like, what is going on? This is very unconventional. So I followed him. All the journalists around me like, go. I was like, okay. So I went backstage and was like, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. He was like, all right, keep quiet. I'm gonna throw water all over your hair, and I'm gonna drag you out and just look like I beat you up, okay? I was like, oh, okay, sure. And then he dragged me out, and then that ended up on like the front page of the newspaper in like Philippines and all that. So he remembered me from that, and then I reunited with him for Logan, which was his final X-Men movie, right? And that was in Taiwan, and we had a really beautiful chat there where we actually got to talk and do a proper interview one-on-one. So that was really nice. And then I interviewed and then after the X-Men movies, he was working on his passion project called The Greatest Showman. This movie musical, no one had really heard of it. We kind of heard that it was going to be based on P.T. Barnum. Now, obviously, Greatest Showman is known as just like, oh my god, greatest selling soundtrack and stuff. But back then, it was still this big question mark over what is Hugh Jackman doing after Wolverine. So I got a call from 20th Century Fox. They heard that I was doing a lot of music stuff at that time as well. I just released my first album, I think. I was working on my first album. And they said, we want to fly you to London to record a song for The Greatest Showman at Abbey Road Studios with this singer Kiala Settle. She's from Broadway. So it's me and I think 14 other different singers from around the world. We have Brazil, Puerto Rico, Taiwan. So I was super nervous as well. And then I met up with Hugh there again. We're on a first name basis, by the way. I met up with him there. We had an interview there.
I just want to say that is like phenomenal to be able to be flown to London and record at, you know, the famous Abbey's. I mean, you must have been like out of you. I don't know. How did you feel when you found out you were going to have the opportunity?
Nervous. And like, to be perfectly honest, I was probably the most nervous I'd ever been in my life, because I also felt like the most, and this is fact, I was the most unfamous person of that group. I had the lowest number of followers, and anytime someone said, "Oh my god, Josh, you're really cool, let me follow you on Instagram," I would get so insecure. But like, oh my god, this person from Brazil has like 1 million followers, and she's gonna judge me. She's not gonna want to talk to me anymore. So I had to overcome a lot of that inner saboteur coming out over. It was a whole lot of, I do not deserve to be here. This is way too surreal. This is way too cool. Most days I would not even be considered to be in this room with these people, with this kind of project, and somehow I've made it in, and so there's a lot of imposter syndrome for sure. And I remember for the Abbey Road thing, I remember, so we got a song sheet for the song called "This Is Me," and we had to learn the song in an hour. Wow. And all of us had different parts. And then Kiala Settle would come in, so she's the singer of the song, and then Hugh Jackman would come in, and he was going to surprise us, and we were planning all these things. So I just knew, I have these lines to sing, I cannot mess it up. I went to the toilet. I have a strange relationship with toilets being sort of this like lighthouse for me, where if I get nervous, same thing for school, I'll go to the toilet, lock myself in a cubicle, and just like go through my schoolwork, my notes and stuff. So I went to the toilet, and then I just tried to memorize the song and tried to like sing it over and over in my head. So when it's my turn to sing, I don't mess it up. And my fondest memory, honestly, for the whole Abbey Road thing was working with a vocal coach, because I've never worked with a vocal coach before. And he taught us to use all these weird sounds to warm up. And by the time it came to actually singing, my voice just came out of me so smooth, so natural. I had never felt that way before with my voice. I'd never known that I could do that with my voice. So that was my greatest memory of actually the whole thing. It had nothing to do with Abbey Road or the really nice hotel or anything like that, or the celebrities. It was, I didn't know I could sing like that. It felt so effortless.
And I just want to say, like, you are no slouch as a singer. Because, I mean, that's how I mean, you've been singing for so long, so that's amazing, like, to have that experience even after all that you've already done. To still feel, whoa, I've got another level there. I got something more.
Yeah, and it's like that with our skill sets, isn't it? Like for you, it's parkour, or it could even be hosting, where when you learn something or you unlock that thing that you thought you never had, and then you start like soaring in the air. You're like, oh my goodness, I never thought I'd be able to do this, and I'm actually doing it. And it feels right. That was incredible. So I had an interview with Hugh Jackman there for The Greatest Showman, and then when the movie actually came out, they flew me to Sydney to do an interview. So I have to set this story up like that, because there's a reason for why this is so special, right? I got my dates wrong for my flight. Something that still haunts me to this very day. I still get like nightmares and PTSD from just sort of, a lot of my bad dreams come from anxiety of like not being able to make my flight or getting the timing wrong. So I was supposed to, so my flight was something like Friday 2 a.m. right?
Right.
So
you got mixed up on the day, right?
Yeah, in my mind it was like Friday 2 a.m., which means Friday night I need to go to the airport.
Yeah.
So that was what happened, right? So there's all this setup that we're going to be reunited after 8 months of recording in London and no one knowing what The Greatest Showman is. Finally, the movie is coming out. I'm going to be meeting Hugh in Sydney. Zac Efron's going to be there. Zendaya's going to be there. I'm going to be meeting the director, Michael Gracie, again. I'm meeting Kiala again. And the movie is coming out this weekend. So I'm supposed to go to Sydney, where a big number of the crew and the cast is from. So I missed my flight. And I freaked out because I also had a layer of what is my boss going to say and what is the movie company going to say. Yeah. Right? And all my friends that I've made that I'm going to see in Sydney, they're going to be like, where is Josh? So I had to go. I no questions about it. I have to find a way to go there. So I called a friend of mine as my cab was pulling to work that Friday morning. And I was like, holy crap. This is what's going on. I'm freaking out. What do I do? And my friend, God bless him, he said, you just come here to work. I will settle everything. So he booked a flight for me with his credit card, and he booked me a flight to Sydney that evening, I think. So what I ended up making it to Sydney, reaching the hotel at like 5 a.m. of the interview day. So I was actually supposed to fly in a day before to rest, to walk around Sydney a little bit, prepare my questions. And usually I like that. Whenever I travel for interviews, I like having a day before where I get to just sit in my bathtub, deal with my anxiety, come up with my questions, really test the questions in my mind, and then next morning prepare for interview day, right? So I didn't have that. So my entire flight to Sydney was just going through all the questions, did not sleep at all, reached the Four Seasons in the morning, and I was so afraid to fall asleep because my interview was at like 10 or 11. So I went to the gym, I had breakfast, I went for the interview, and the interview ended up becoming my most watched interview. And it's the interview that a lot of people go back to. It's got like over 1 million views. So for a journalist from Singapore to do an interview series and to have that video cross over 1 million views, and there was no like stunts or whatever, it was just genuine conversations. And I went in there with, I am here to reunite with these people. They have a movie they're here to promote, and I cannot mess it up for the movie company. I need to do the best interview ever. So that's why the title for the YouTube video is The Greatest Interview Ever, because I went in with, it's The Greatest Showman, and also I need to do the greatest interview ever, or I'm never going to be hired again. So I did that interview, and then I slept for a really long time. But that was a moment. That was, yeah, it was really scary going in, but I'm very proud of that interview. Yeah,
that's amazing. I mean, you certainly don't look like, I saw that interview. You certainly don't look like you didn't have any sleep. So you managed to cover up well.
Yeah, exactly. So
no need for sunglasses even.
Right. So it's like, I love the interviews that I've done, right? And I'm very proud of the work. But when I think of these interviews or these moments with these celebrities and everything, actually very little has to do with this celebrity time, because I only have like 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes with these people, right? And they're really cool, respect and love them. But my memory comes from getting the gig, going there, figuring out my questions, a lot of anxiety. I feel like, take a shot every time I say the word anxiety on this podcast. And editing the video as well, because I edit all the interviews, I subtitle everything, and I'm forced to look at my work and critique it. I'm forced to look at it, and like, I need to start looking up more. I don't have good eye contact because I can't use this shot. So there's a part of me that's interviewer, and then there's a part of me that's actually editing the product, because I come from film school, right? So
I thought that you had a cameraman there to set it. Do you actually have to set up all the cameras and the lighting and everything?
No. So what happens for these kind of press junkets is they have their own set camera crew with lighting that they hire from the country that they're in. So they'll hire like a production house to settle everything, and then I get the footage after. So
nice.
For me, like in film school, I loved editing. Editing was my favorite thing. Even before, when I was in primary school with like Windows Movie Maker, I love editing. I would create sort of fan-made trailers with other songs. I'll put like a Britney Spears song, and then I'll put another, like a movie trailer, and just cut it up. So I love editing. So I think a lot of how I've grown as an interviewer has also been actually doing the post-production and assessing it. Like, I know that question sounded right in my head, but there's no way it works in this interview because the flow isn't there. It's not coherent now. I need to take this out, reconfigure how my interview is going to be like. So when I'm planning my questions, I'm already thinking of the product. I'm already thinking of how it's going to flow in the edit. And if this doesn't work or this joke doesn't fly, then I need to have something else so that it links with the previous thing. So it's a lot of that going on when I do interviews.
You know, it's really comforting to hear that, because when I have seen you just hanging out with you or just seeing you at work, a lot of it looks so natural to you that I think for most people, they just see, oh, wow, it's just, you didn't have to do any preparation. You just show up, you ask the questions, and bam. And you're sharing that you actually spent a day thinking about the questions, the sequencing, and all that kind of stuff. Can you share, actually, I'm really curious to understand, do you have a specific kind of workflow process in terms of preparing for an interview? I mean, other than just randomly, do you actually, is there a process to that you follow through to get to the final, you know, the flow and the questions?
Yeah, I genuinely believe that I have a gift. And I'm not trying to
I love it. That's the confidence I'm talking about.
No. Let me explain. I genuinely believe that I have a gift in this field, or in this, in this thing, right? And I say that because sometimes the questions will just fall on me, and it feels like it's not from me. I don't know if it's the universe or it's God or what, but there is like a connection. There's like a very clear channel between what's out there and me, and sometimes something will just fall on me, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna ask about that, and then so I rely a part of it, and I really believe that all of us have our individual gifts, right? But it is not enough. I don't just go into every interview going, oh my gosh, I'm just gonna commune with the universe, and it will tell me all the questions. And then so it's never just that. So I rely a little bit on my gift. I rely on. I'm told that, okay, so tomorrow I'm going to interview, I don't know. Tomorrow I'm going to interview Madonna, right? So I will just spend a day listening to the music, whatever it is, and I'll kind of lean on my gift. Sorry. I'll lean on my gift a little bit to just see what falls on me. If there's any thought that just falls into my head about something, and I'll entertain it, and I'll journal it down, and I'll investigate. I'll do a little bit of research on what this thought is. So there's a bit of that, and then there's a lot of doing a lot of research or watching. If it's a movie premiere, I want to watch the movie first. I'll always have room for questions after I watch a movie. So I have questions before I watch the movie, just based on the impression I have, and then I'm gonna watch the movie. And as I'm watching the movie, I'm also listening to the universe. So like I'll give you an example. There's a press junket that I did for this Netflix action film called Six Underground. It's got Ryan Reynolds. So Ryan Reynolds is another actor that I've done, just like Hugh Jackman, 4 interviews, and they also kind of be linked to this whole superhero thing. And they're both incredibly kind people that, for some reason, I just keep interviewing them through the years, and we always have like home runs. So with Ryan Reynolds, for this one, as I was watching the movie, and I'm not a big action movie guy, so I'm watching Six Underground, which is like Michael Bay, explosion. I'm just like,
CGI.
It's not my kind of movie. But then guess what? Because of that gift thing that I told you about, right? And it may not just be a talent. It just could be gift could just be my personality and how it is, right? And how it kind of reacts to what's in front of me. So there's a sequence where they're in the car, and then a Spice Girls song comes out. I think it's "Wannabe," and then Ryan Reynolds like takes the radio, smashes it, or throws it out the window. And no one had any reaction apart from just a little bit of giggle here and there. But I was like, oh, how dare he, right? So I had that reaction, and I was like, okay, I'm going to use that and take that as my question. I'm going to make him apologize to the Spice Girls. And then because of that, because of me pointing out the whole Spice Girls thing, then he shared, they actually wanted to use Hollaback Girl from Gwen Stefani, but it cost way too much money to get the sort of the sync for that song.
Also, that's a backstory to that, because I saw that interview. That wasn't mentioned in your cut, but
oh, really?
Or maybe I saw the shortcut.
Right, yeah. So I'm pretty sure he mentioned it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I used that bit in there.
Okay, maybe I misremembered.
Yeah,
remembered.
Yeah. So it was little things like that where I'll watch a movie and then something will hit me and then I will write it down, and then I also think of what do I want this overall interview to be about, and every interview that I do, I always say the same prayer, which is, don't make this about me. I just want to be. I want to be sort of like I just want to connect the person watching the video to the person that I'm interviewing. That's it. I just want to be used. So the word I always say is use me. In my prayers, I always say, I don't want to make it about me, because if it's going to be about me, it's probably going to suck, because I'm always quite... I kind of ruin everything all the time in my mind. I'm always like, I'm such a klutz. I bumped into stuff, and I somehow I have this gig, I have this task to do. So just use me, connect the person that I'm interviewing to the person who's watching this video. I pray that the person who I'm interviewing, they will get to hear things as they're telling me things, so that when they're answering my question, they'll have realizations for themselves. And then for the person who's watching the video, that it won't just be passive, it'll be something that's interactive with themselves as well. It will unlock something, a conversation in their mind. So it's always kind of like that when I approach interviews. Not all the time, so that's why I gotta like put myself in this flow. So your question was about that flow of things. I need to make sure I do all these different things. I have some space before I do the interview. I can't just like run straight in. Yeah.
All right, that's good. I think that's very clear. You know, you have your kind of guidelines. You spend the time to kind of bathe yourself in the information and the vibe of the person. And I guess you probably also spend some time after you've come up with these unique perspectives, then to sequence it and work out what's the best sequence of the questions and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. I always have backups for things. And yeah, I think I just learned a lot from editing the videos. Because I don't like looking at myself on camera as well. So that's the other thing. I kind of have to like force myself to observe the interview from a third person. And I actually don't rewatch my interviews after they come out, because I spend so much time editing it, scrutinizing it, going through all the questions. So once I put it out, I just kind of put it out, and that's it. Because I also don't want to notice any nuances that I forgot. Like, oh my gosh, what if he thinks I'm a total idiot? I don't want to notice that and then like ruin the memory of it in my head. Like that Katy Perry one, because that was so long ago. So that's the hardest one for me to go back to. Like I'm like, what am I wearing? What was I thinking with that hair? Like so I don't want to revisit a lot of these interviews, but yeah, they're good memories.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the other ones I saw was you did one with Britney Spears.
Yeah, that's
how did that one come about?
That's the hardest one to realize that I've done. Because I'm a massive Britney fan, like massive Britney. Like I have like the dance routines memorized. I followed her career all the way from the very start. And when that opportunity came to interview her, I think I texted my boss and I said, I will do anything for this interview. I will take 1 month no pay. I will not go on leave for the next year. I have to interview Britney Spears. You don't understand. Okay? You don't understand. So actually the interview did come to me, thankfully. And it was the most tight-knit run interview I've ever done, where I had to call, I think she was in Tokyo. She was gonna come to Singapore that following week or so for her Piece of Me tour, and she was in Tokyo a stop before, and we had to call LA to patch. No, we had to call London and then patch through to New York and then patch through to Tokyo, and we had all these different people listening as I'm doing the interview with her. And obviously there's so many things I want to ask Britney Spears with all that knowledge that I have of what she's gone through. But I also didn't want the line to get cut midway through, and to live with that as a fan, knowing that Britney hung up on me. Or so, like, because I love Britney so much, I was the most calculated, I think, with that interview, where I was very careful about every single question, where I didn't want to lean too much into the gift. You know, because the gift might also get me into trouble. You know, if I just ask the things that I genuinely want to know, I went in this time being very calculated, knowing that this is what she's gone through with the media. So she is going to come into this interview with this perspective of how a journalist is going to speak to her and the things that they're going to ask. So I'm just going to focus on being kind. I am going to be on Britney's side. I'm also not going to vilify anyone else around her. I am just going to focus on doing a pleasant interview that she will enjoy. That was it. So I did that interview, and I say that's the hardest one for me to realize I've done, because I still listen to Britney Spears every single day. And in my mind, it still takes me back to the music videos, the performances, to my relationship with the music. And I keep forgetting that, oh my gosh, I've actually spoken to this woman on the phone for a few minutes. Like, it doesn't click. Because it's it's the same thing with Hugh Jackman, right? Like, I've interviewed him 4 times. I've had moments with him off camera as well, which is great. And actually in Sydney, when after the interview was done, when we were like changing the SD card, and because they have to pass me the SD card after the interview is done. So he was like, "How was the whole experience in London with Abbey Road?" And I said that honestly, I wish I remembered it more, because I felt like I wish I enjoyed it. I allowed myself to enjoy it more, because I was so nervous for everything. I was so nervous about how I would be. And I told myself here coming to Sydney that I'm going to enjoy myself. And from interviews here on, I'm just going to focus on enjoying myself, which is why in this interview, I'm just focusing on the questions that I have to ask, having a good time with you, and that's it. I'm not going to try to give into all that. And so I've all these memories with all these different people, which is really nice. The Katy Perry one as well. A lot of my love for that interview comes after the interview was done. Like, right after, I think I was given about 15, 20 minutes of Katy Perry, and we ended up speaking for like 45 minutes, because we just kept talking about life. Because my dad's a pastor, and her dad's a pastor as well. So we connected on that level. And I got to hear what she was going through, because on the surface, she's the most followed person on social media. She had just released Teenage Dream, which was such a big album, and it had records that were like tying with Michael Jackson Thriller. And she had just released Roar, which was a #1 hit. But then I was also hearing like the ridiculous pressure that was on her to pick a next single, and she was asking me like, what should I do for the next single? What do you think from the album would be a great single after that? Should I shoot a video for this? And I was giving her music video ideas, which is quite funny. And like, there was this song on the album called Legendary Lovers, and it has sort of an Indian inspired treatment to the production, and I gave her ideas for this Bollywood movie to watch, and I think I spent like 5 minutes talking to her about this one Bollywood movie. So my point that I'm trying to get at, I'm sorry for going off on this tangent, is that when I listen to a Katy Perry song now, it still feels like I'm listening to Katy Perry the star, and there's like a huge difference
divide?
that happens. Yeah, divide.
Yeah.
I think that I can watch a Hugh Jackman movie now, and I'll be like, yeah, that's Wolverine, and I don't think of the interviews, which I guess maybe it's also great. They're great actors.
Yeah, fantastic. So, one of the interesting thing you just brought up there, and the fact that your father was a pastor, and I'm kind of really curious what that was like. I mean, first of all, we're both Asian. We have that Asian kind of upbringing that's already fairly conservative. And then your father being a pastor as well, and being raised as a Christian.
Yeah.
How has that kind of played into who you've become? Because that must have had some influence in terms of, I don't know, how do you feel it influenced you as growing up in that kind of a household? A lot. And I think I used to view it in a very negative light, because it was really tough, and even in sort of Christianity, there are all these denominations, and my dad's part of Bible Presbyterian, and they use like the King James version of the Bible, so it's a lot of like thou, thee, shall,
So it's really, really, really old school, really traditional, and there are a lot of layers to that. There's a lot of layers to that, and you brought up race as well, and race is definitely another factor in things. I think for me, like, I'm never someone who will look at something that's tough and go to it and be like, thank you for being so tough. I've never been that person. Like, I hear that sometimes where it's like, oh, this person completely ruined your life, but it taught you so many things. So when you see this person again, you need to thank them. Like, no, I don't think I should thank you. I was going to figure it. I'm going to thank myself for being able to roll with the punches. I'm not going to thank you for throwing a punch. So I've never been that person, but I'm also challenging myself to view both sides and accept that these were my circumstances, and I'm grateful that I'm able to rebel, because my whole love for pop culture came from years of not being able to watch TV or listen to the radio.
Really?
I had no access. Yeah, there was a big chunk of my childhood where I was all the hosting stuff that I learned, like as in the kindergarten, right, was from watching my dad preach at church. So I wanted to be like my dad. I wanted to host like him.
Yes.
And every movie that I watched came from the church library. Every song and artist that I listened to was a sort of like a Christian song. And not even like Hillsong kind of music. It was like chamber music, where it was, right, because it's a lot of piano and organ that's used in our church services.
It's a very traditional.
Yeah, and anything outside was considered secular, is what they would call it all the time.
Up until what age was this that you had this, like, very sheltered?
Up until 1996, when the Spice Girls released Spice.
How old were you?
I took 6. I was 6, about 6 years old.
Well, you
It must have been around that time, because I think I remember watching MTV secretly, and because we were not allowed to use the cable channels, except for 17, which is Cartoon Network, and I think like 22 for Nickelodeon or something, and then after that, I went into MTV and I saw the Spice Girls perform "To Become One." And then I went to a friend's place, a church friend's place, but the older brother, who's the badass one, right, the rebel, he was listening to the Spice Girls. Who would have thought, right, in the 90s? Some people are like, oh, we rebel with like Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd or The Clash. It's like, oh, I'm rebelling with the Spice Girls.
And that's why it's so important to you.
Exactly. And so the Spice Girls have always been very important to me, because they were the first artists where I saw that CD and I was listening to the music and I'm having so much fun, and it does sound happy and fun, like the church music that I sing at, like in children's services, where it's really joyful and fun. It's like I wanted to hear this, and my dad would get so angry because it was secular music and it was just these 5 women. And what, even back then, it was still quite scantily clad, right? So it was like, oh, you're too young to listen to stuff like that. You're not supposed to be consuming that kind of content. So religion was tough. It also led to me rebelling and also saying that, you know what, I am going to chase these things. And because I had not been exposed to all these things, I wanted to know everything. So I went to like the DVD store and like memorized all the different movie titles and who was on the poster. Even if I've never seen a movie, I can tell you this person.
That's crazy that you had this kind of drive at such a young age, because for me, I was very much sheltered as well. Probably more so because I didn't actually know what pop music was till I was like in grade 10, like 15 years. That was when I had no idea what pop music was before that, because all I knew was playing piano, classical music, Beethoven, all this kind of like those kind of records at that time. And yeah, it was. You're not gonna guess what was the first experience of pop music for me.
Michael Jackson.
Pretty close. It's actually
Prince.
Probably your version of Spice Girls, but my time. It was Wham. Probably one of the first kind of like say boy bands.
Sorry, did you just compare Wham to Michael Jackson?
No,
Did
no,
you
no.
just say
To Spice
close?
Girls. To Spice Girls.
Oh, okay.
I was saying girl band, not Michael Jackson.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay.
But so that's my thing.
Okay. Wham. Not a bad place
Yeah.
to start. Not a bad place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
yeah.
a big
So,
GM fan.
so you
But-
you kind of understand also, right? When you start when you say you listen to Wham and then you hear about these other artists, right? Because it was like
Yeah,
that
and
for
I
you.
did the exactly same thing. I went to at that time, records was a big thing, and I'd go to record stores. I'd go through all the records trying to find the records I want.
Yeah.
And I had the charts every week. I'd go and pick up the charts from the record store, know what's number 1, what's number 52, listen to the chart music. Yeah, I was very similar, I think, but just at a different age. I was 15, 16, you were 6. That's crazy.
Yeah. Also, I will say, we had a lot of bootleg CDs that were being sold before, and these bootleg CDs, because remember in the 90s, compilation discs were really popular. They would have like now 42, right? So I would get all these like pirated CDs or these bootleg CDs, and they would have like the best of all these different artists, and I'm like, oh my gosh, who is Mariah Carey? And then I'm like, oh my god, right? And then I would learn from who all these different artists are, and then research on all these different people when I go to the CD shop.
I'm curious. You were saying that your parents kind of sheltered you from all this stuff. What happened at the age of 6, other than your friend giving you access to this MTV? How did you get access to everything else from then on in? Especially when your father found out you were listening to people like Spice Girls. How did you keep that?
He was not happy at the start, and my uncle was another rebel guy, right? Where I remember he gave me, whenever we go to his place, right? My uncle, so my dad's brother, whenever hanging out with them for dinner, before my parents come to the dinner, I would go early, and he would show me Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson, a lot of Indian music also, and strangely enough, Kenny G. So I was listening to Kenny G in his place. Yeah, right. So you would understand, right? So like weird mix of music, and then all of a sudden Enya. So like, so I think I don't remember exactly what led him to allow it, but I know that through the years he was always like, it wasn't something that he was proud of, and I think he just learned to just let it go.
Right.
And my uncle, his wife, so my aunt would buy me a CD anytime it's like a celebration, like a Deepavali or my birthday or something. And I remember she got me Destiny's Child, Writings on the Wall. She got me Jennifer Lopez, the J-Lo album. So I would always like put a wish out of like, I really want this album. Could you help me buy the CD, please? Because my dad's not going to buy it for me, and it'll cost too much money. It was like $19.90 for a CD back then. So I think over time he just learned to let it go. And there was a period as well where things got really tense, and I ended up living with my mom's side, my grandmother, where it was just me and my grandmother who didn't speak English. She spoke Teochew. And so she watches like, so I've had like two extremes when it comes to race. I've had like half Indian, where it's like a lot of Indian music, and then a lot of Chinese music. So my grandmother, she would only watch like Chinese opera, like Teochew opera, and then but she had cable TV, so a lot of it, the knowledge also came from that period where I had no one to bother me, and then I was just getting all this content, and my dad was not very pleased about it. I went to film school. I don't think he was super supportive about that. But just to kind of speed things up a little bit on my story when it comes to Christianity and rebelling and all that, I think for a big chunk of it was rebel, rebel, rebel. You know, how dare you shield me from all these things that I ended up loving, ended up being so passionate about, and how much of this passion is from the rebelling itself. It is just about someone who's sort of put to the corner and told that you're not allowed to escape, or you're not allowed to look at the other side. How much of it is actually genuine passion for entertainment? How much of it is just a reaction to being put in that place at such a young age? So I used to have a lot of anger towards that, but I think in recent years, I've turned it around a little bit, and I've embraced Christianity in my own way. Like, I don't go to church, unfortunately, anymore. Things with that is a little bit, still a big question mark for me, and things have been very tough with my family and church and my sexuality, and how that kind of all's put all of it on the table. So unfortunately, I've had to sort of remove myself from that, but I've learned to just sort of embrace it. That with it also came a very early conversation about spirituality, about love and the meaning of love, and a very early example of unconditional love that was taught to me as a child, which is Jesus, right? Where there is a being who will love you no matter what, unconditionally. And I think as a child, and an adult now, I definitely need that template when it comes to love, when there's so much lovelessness, I don't know if that's the word, in the world, where I think I'm grateful that at the very start I was at least shown an image, whether or not you believe in it or not, but I was just shown a character or a person or whatever that there is someone who would love you unconditionally, and then the rest of my life just becomes a test, right? So I'm grateful for those things, and I'm trying to find a place where I don't like agree, where I'm not gonna, like, when I said I'm not gonna thank it, like, so there are still a lot of things I don't agree with, right? But there are also a lot of things that it has taught me that I'm grateful for. Words that I use, habits like praying before I do an interview. It's very important for me because it just reminds me to not put myself as the focus, and instead think of what can I do, how can I be used in this situation. Yeah.
No, here. What you brought up about going to film school.
Yeah.
And from what you're saying, music seemed to be and also just seeing what kinds of thing you do. Music, to me, from my perspective, seems to be a stronger kind of thread for you. And I'm just wondering what made you decide to go to film school as compared to, I don't know, taking a musical path.
I wanted to do film school because during that period of rebelling and discovering like pop music and all that, I also started watching a lot of R-rated movies. So that's another level of rebellion, right? Where I think for a while I thought that rated R films are a bunch of pornos, or really shocking, violent stuff, and I just wanted to see it all.
Yeah, we probably should just put a little footnote there in terms of what does R mean in Singapore, right? Because obviously the ratings are very different across the world.
Yeah.
Would you like to explain? Because I'm not very clear on it myself.
For sure. We have PG, we have PG-13, but they only card you when it goes to NC-16. So when it goes NC-16, it's actually very similar to the US, and the strongest rating for them is an NC-17, where they actually card you. Because in the US, if it's a restricted film, you can still go in if you're a 5-year-old. You just have to be with someone who's above 18 to take you in, right? So it's like, I don't know. But in Singapore, they start carding you at NC-16 and then M18, so mature 18. And then there is the hard R21. And R21 films, unfortunately, in Singapore, and this is still happening today, R21 films don't get a lot of doors closed to R21 films. So you can't promote an R21 film on TV, on radio, because those are short platforms for all audiences. So when you promote an R21 film on that, so we're not allowed to actually talk about Game of Thrones for some reason, because Game of Thrones is R21.
Really?
Yes, Game of Thrones is R21 according to IMDb. Some seasons of it. Modern Family is for sure.
What? Modern Family is R21?
So, which brings me to how homosexual content is viewed as R21 content. So seasons of Glee have been given R21. So I remember when I was like 19 or 18 when I started watching Glee. It was really big back then.
Yeah.
You couldn't find the DVDs for them because you would have like season 1 and then there's a missing season 2. You can't find the DVD. And then there's season 3. So that we would have all these things because when a film gets R21, it doesn't get a home release as well. So we still, to this day, don't have Kill Bill Volume 1 released on DVD because it's an R21 film. We can have it on Netflix now, thankfully. But when it comes to actually physical copies of it, we don't have it. So I started watching a lot of these movies thinking that I was going to be watching porn. And anytime I would go to Malaysia, where a lot of Singaporeans used to get their bootleg movies from, right? So if you don't have your seasons of Glee, you would go to Malaysia and sneak over all these seasons at a really cheap price. So I would flip through the booklet of all these different DVDs and like find all the movies that are R21, and then I'll buy it, But then I also buy like really lame shit like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and put it at the front so when my dad sees it, he kind of sees Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I remember doing that, or taking the CD. I remember, I haven't thought of this in a while. I remember buying, I can't remember what it was, but it was a movie. I think it was Brokeback Mountain, and then I wanted to see Brokeback Mountain because at that point I was still kind of curious about my sexuality. And then I took that, when I bought the Brokeback Mountain, I took out the CD sleeve and just took the disc itself and I put it in the sleeve of another film that was like PG. And I remember bringing it back and then watching that. So I think Brokeback Mountain's a great example, Kill Bill as well, where at that period I wanted to rebel by watching all these films that were forbidden, right? Thinking I was going to get pornography, but I ended up being very inspired by these movies because I would just fast forward to look for nudity and realize that there's no nudity in either of these movies. And then I'll be like, people are talking about this movie though, so I'm just gonna watch it from the start, and then I'll be blown away by like the cinematography and like the acting, like Uma Thurman, isn't that from Batman and Robin? And then I'll be like, let me go watch all the other stuff that Uma Thurman's done, and Lucy Liu's in here, she's in Charlie's Angels, so I'll be like doing all that research just like I have done for music. So films then became, what? All these movies shouldn't be R21. Like, why is Lost in Translation NC-16, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind? And any time I would fall asleep watching any of these movies, I would force myself to rewatch it so I understood every single aspect of it and I understood the story and everything. So a lot of my love from film then came from that, realizing once again that I think these ratings don't represent a lot of these movies, and ended up falling in love with these films. And it felt like a little secret of mine because a lot of my friends still wanted to go out and see all these pornos, or like, you can see this person's tits in this movie. I feel like that's a very early 2000s conversation to have, right? It's like, her tits are in this movie.
There used to be a website where you could just pay membership.
You just see celebrity.
What's that?
Yeah, I remember that. They talked about it in a movie as well, where it's just like celebrity, like moments when celebrities take their clothes off. Which, I mean, now
I can't remember. It's called like Skins or something or other.
And, must have been, right?
Sorry?
Yeah, it must have been. It must have been something.
It's
like
a long
that.
time ago. I just remember. Yeah, it's one of the popular sites back in the day.
Yeah, because we didn't have I remember how like shocking the American Pie movies were, right?
Right.
Like those kind of like teen, like really, I don't know, explicit stuff. But it was also like, see, like even American Pie, for example, like everyone was just like, oh my gosh, American Pie is super dirty, it's all about sex. And then you actually watch it and you're like, this guy really likes this girl. And I remember at the end of the movie, they have Big Runga with that song Sway. And I have all these like kind of, like it was a lot of, with film, it was a lot of, I thought it was going to give me this, but then it shows me something else that I never expected from. And then I fell in love with it and I wanted to write. So I started writing a lot of like little scripts in school, in secondary school, and then I wanted to go to film school because I wanted to be an actor. So my thought was I want to be in these movies, but I don't see anyone who looks like me. And at that point I was auditioning for a lot of stuff. And you understand, when it comes to auditioning, you go in, especially your first couple of auditions, you're so excited. You think this is your big break. And then you tell everyone, and I told everyone, right? And my family members were so annoyed at me because all I wanted to do was to show them that, hey, you told me all this stuff will get me nowhere, and now I'm going to go somewhere and I'm going to be that someone, and you're going to see that I was not making a fool of myself. I'm not going to have that moment where I go to business school or whatever, or go to law school. I'm actually, like, I knew what I was doing back then. So it was a lot of, every audition was, I'm going to get it, and then I don't get it. and or they want someone who can speak Chinese. I can speak Chinese, but I don't look Chinese. And if I'm in the show, they need to explain why this guy can speak Chinese when he doesn't look Chinese. So there's a lot of that, right? So there's a lot of that, and then I was like, you know what? I'm done with the acting. I'm just gonna focus on writing roles for myself. And then when I was in film school, I loved the writing part. I loved the editing part. The directing part was really fun. But then I also learned sort of the reality of film. Or at least a little bit of what the reality of film is, which is that it takes a long time for something to go from a thought and pen and paper to actually a movie coming out in cinemas. There are all these hands that will touch it, all these different producers and the people who are funding your film, all these different people to make a movie happen, right? And I realized at that point that maybe this is not for me, because I started singing around that time as well. I started playing the guitar a little bit, hanging out with friends, and I realized that with music, it's a lot easier for me to have a thought, write a song, record it, and thankfully, at that period of time, technology was starting to come up where you can have like your GarageBand on your computer and you can record something, and you can record on your iPhone a little demo. And then we had like Friendster and Facebook starting to come up, and YouTube had just come up as well. So I started putting stuff out on YouTube, and I realized that whatever satisfaction I was looking for, I could get it from music much faster, where I have a thought, I can create, I can tell a story, and I can put it out, and I have control of that process, and I'm responsible for this process. Whereas for film school, I had to think about what each person in my team wanted to do with our final year project, right? And that's how you and I know each other, where you were an actor, Derrick. You were an actor in one of our films.
I had actually just arrived in Singapore in 2009, just like I think it was June, and I had worked for 2 or 3 years to save up enough money so I could come to Singapore and give a shot at trying to break into the industry over there. And I think your film was probably the first, or I think it was one of the very first auditions I did for the short films for all the students that were doing. So I think yours was probably the first short film I did. And yeah, I do remember it quite clearly.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, but it was also a lot of work. And you saw that, like, just for like an idea that I had at home for this film, and then you want to do it, and then you've got to convince all these other people of what you want to do, and then there are all these aspects of it that you want to ensure fits your vision. And so it was just a lot of work for one little short film. And
yeah,
so my sorry, please.
No, you go.
And I think my respect for filmmakers and the crew also, like, it just blew my mind, right? But I am very, very grateful for everything that I've learned in film school. Like, everything that I have right now was from film school. Like, I learned how to do radio because everything was so tough in my curriculum, like actually classroom stuff. I went to do my radio as like a co-curricular activity. We had a campus radio station, and that was where I was like, you know what, school is so tiring and stressful. I'm just here to like talk shit. Let's get on the mic. We're just gonna talk about music. We're just gonna talk about pop culture and entertainment. So I started doing that while I was in school, and the film school stuff opened doors for me when it came to my job in radio, because I went in to my radio station to actually do film stuff. Because right after I graduated from film school, I went into the army for 2 years in the film unit, because they saw that I went to film school. So they hired me to be a soldier who didn't have to go to the jungle. Instead, I had to film, I had to edit. I had my own editing suite for 2 years. I learned now a different side of film, where it's nothing to do with your vision and what story you want to tell, or you want to be like Quentin Tarantino. You can't do that. And if you're going to be working in a production house, you are here to service the client. So I had to learn another aspect of it, where I'm just going to shut up, I'm going to listen to what the client wants, and I'm trying to give it to them, but also give it with a little bit of flair of me in there, and sneak it in. So I spent 2 years doing that, where I had to like really like just shave off a lot of the things that I thought I would be when it comes to film.
And it became a lot more of do your job, do the job, do the job. So it was a lot of that, and then I shot wedding videos for a very short period of time with a friend's company, and then I went to the radio station to help them build up their social media, because social media was starting to come up, right? So I told them that I do YouTube stuff as well. I come from a film background. I want to help you with editing and shooting videos and viral videos as well. And they said, we like your voice and we like how you speak, and we actually like your little demo of you in the campus radio station. Why don't you consider doing radio as well? So I didn't think much of it. I was like, yeah, sure. So I went in there with doing a little bit of everything. So like, I'm just genuinely grateful for how everything has kind of crossed over.
Yeah.
With school, with the things that I was curious about as a kid. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just from the outside, it looks like things have kind of came together for you very, very smoothly in terms of your transitions. I mean, I didn't know that when you were in the army that you were actually relegated to film unit. I mean, that's amazing that you got to indulge in your passion, or a part of your passion in army. Because most of the guys out there are out there having to do all the physical stuff, but you got to sharpen your saw.
Yeah, I think on the surface it would look like I just got lucky, that everything was sort of linked, and there's such great synergy between all these different things in my life, which has led to where I am today, and all that is still happening. But I don't think it's just a matter of luck. I think it's really every one of us, we're presented decisions to make at every point of our lives, every single day, right? Even with the film unit thing. See, I tell that like it's a beautiful story, but what actually happened was I didn't want to go to film unit because I didn't even know the film unit existed, right? I wanted to go to the music and drama company because I thought, after film school, now I get to just sing and dance for the country, and I was terrified at that point. I was starting to sort of explore my sexuality at that time as well. I must have been about 18, 19 years old. So I was starting to come into my sexuality, and I was terrified of the system, of going into the army, the kind of jokes that they would make, and I just didn't want to be back in sort of like that. Regimentation, all that just kind of scared the crap out of me, and I was a shell of my person when I went in for my medical checkup, for anything to do with just going into the building and getting posting and stuff like that. Every time I go in, I'd just be a shell of myself. I just be no personality, because you show personality, they're going to use it against you, and they're going to make fun of you, and it's going to be tough, and you don't want this to be a traumatic 2 years. So I just went in with that perspective. I'm just going to be open to everything, and I'm just going to do what I'm supposed to do. So when I heard that after my BMT, my basic military training, that there is this company called the Music and Drama Company, where a lot of gay men also go there, and you sing, you dance, you entertain, and you also get a lot of great opportunities to network and meet people in the industry, because somehow everything in Singapore kind of links to our military. But I didn't get in, and I was crushed, and instead I got posted.
I'm really surprised. Was there an audition process, or
there was a hefty audition process? Probably more. I've done more auditioning for this than anything in my life. I had to do a singing test, a dance test, multiple dance tests. They went through your personality with you. They go through your checks with your medical. It was so intense, and I went in super confident. I went in like I'm a star. I'm gonna do this. I can sing. I can dance, and I didn't get in. And at that point, I was also making friends of all these people around me, believing that we're all going to go in together, and then I didn't. So it was a huge, sucker punch to my ego, huge sucker punch to oh crap, I thought I have all these skills, and maybe I don't. And at that time, American Idol was really big, so I was like, oh, maybe I'm one of those contestants that for a long time thought he could sing, but he can't, or thought he could dance, but he can't. So they posted me in the film unit, and I decided, okay, I guess this is it. I'm going to just do a film. So I'm just going to do that. So I think going back to sort of making decisions in your life, I think every point of the way, every point I was faced with something and I had to make a decision. I've been offered a chance to interview Katy Perry. Do I say that I'm not ready and I'm too scared and I'm not going to go? Or am I just going to go? And when I have that opportunity now, do I just say I'm going to wing it? Or do I watch someone else's interview and copy the questions? Do I follow what the radio station and the label, what they want me to ask, the sort of the press release, and just stick to the press release and ask them, what is the hardest part about recording your music? You know, like, do I do that, or do I switch things up a little bit, or do I find a balance between both so I can please the record label and also give something fresh? So I have just always leaned on my gift and also leaned on, I guess, doing research and having a lot of these conversations with myself and making a decision. So spending time with yourself. Yeah.
Sure. Right. No, it's good to hear that side in terms of, I mean, I could totally get that you would be crushed. And I'm just thinking why they wouldn't have accepted you. Because, you know, when I worked with you on your short film, you were just so vivacious, so out there. I thought, man, you're going to be, I saw that you're going to be really awesome doing what you're doing now. I could see that. So I was just wondering, so I think maybe they just saw that you had the film degree and said, oh, we need someone in film. We got enough of these singing, dancing guys. We're going to keep Josh for the film side.
Could be, or I was just really bad. I hurt myself when I was doing the dance audition because I was wearing like socks when I was stretching, and at that point I couldn't do a split. But then I did a split by accident because I slipped wearing my socks, and I went down, and I think I tore something, and then I still had to audition because in my mind I just thought of all these movies where an accident happens and the artist continues to dance, right? So I thought, okay, I'm going to keep doing it, but my legs kept like twitching, and it was just weird, and I blamed that moment. So I've gone through so many iterations of this. I blamed my body, I blamed my looks, I blamed maybe my talent, I blamed the system. I thought maybe they are messed up, or so I've tried blaming everyone, including myself. But I don't know. We will never know, and I don't think I am very either. I think we all can make whatever it is work, and I think that's what I try to just encourage people to do. We can make anything work. That whole rolling with the punches thing is something that I'm trying to practice doing more. Even if I've already been doing it, I want to be conscious that I'm actually rolling with the punches because, there are so many times where time was sort of spent on worrying or wondering if life would be very different if something else were to happen instead, you know? So, yeah.
Now, with your radio stuff, I mean, as you mentioned, you've been on air nearly a decade. Mm-hmm. You've had all these great interviews with a variety of actors, etc. And I know that you've also been invited to some pretty amazing experiences, like your trip to LA, Hollywood, by Warner Brothers, obviously the London thing, that to Abbey Studios, Japan with Katy Perry, and so obviously that's going to continue, I'm sure, because you've got these great relationships. And something new that you've just started is your podcast.
Yes.
You started that last year?
Yeah, I think around November was when we had our first upload. It was an idea that I had during lockdown itself. So we went into lockdown around March, April. Where were you in the world when that happened?
Oh, the whole lockdown, just before everything kind of closed up, I actually came back to Australia, which is why, and I'm kind of stuck here because we're not allowed to leave the country right now. But that's okay. I'm making the most of it.
Yeah, it's definitely not a bad place to be stuck in. You guys can
I'm very lucky.
You guys can get 1 kilogram of hummus, I think, for $8 or something. I was like,
I got to check that out now that I'm vegan or plant-based.
Oh my god! Congratulations.
Wait, are you plant-based?
I was for about 3 months. Now I'm sort of taking a break from it. There are some reasons for that, but I want to go back to plant-based.
Yeah, sure. I'm experimenting, so I'm not quite sure where it's going to go, but it's going well so far.
Yeah.
Back to your podcast.
Of course. Yeah, I had the idea for it in lockdown last year. I think I've been listening to podcasts for a while now. There was this moment in 2018 that completely changed the course of my life. I had a breakup that just absolutely devastated me, and I was very messed up from that. I went to therapy, and I started reading. Before that, I didn't really read very much, and in 2018 I started reading a lot. I started just consuming any kind of insight that the world was willing to offer me. Every kind of self-help book that I used to tease, I now just like would eat up. And so I was going through a lot in 2018, and I was on this sort of journey of trying to get better with myself and make light of what I was going through with my life. So I was turning to a lot of podcasts. I was listening to a lot of Oprah Super Soul Sunday Conversations. I was listening to a lot of Eckhart Tolle, a lot of audiobooks, so a lot of self-help stuff. And I thought of doing a podcast, but then I also had my radio show, and I didn't want to do a podcast with content that I could put on my radio show itself, right? So I was thinking, if I'm going to do a podcast, I want it to be about something that I can't do on the radio, unfortunately, you know? And then I realized that actually for about 10 years now, it's sort of just natural for me now to just always censor myself and not share when it comes to sort of dating. I don't use the correct pronouns. I just say I dated this person and the date did this, or I would say she did this when it's clearly not she, it's obviously he. And just to sort of, because there are rules in the system where because radio is it's free to air content, we have to sort of abide by the IMDA rules, and this is all, you can go look it up. It's you cannot sort of promote alternative lifestyles on the radio, and there is a law here in Singapore, Section 3778, that criminalizes sex between men. And even though it's sort of very specific and it's just sex between men, there are all these trickle-down effects from it, with censorship and representation and trans people as well, which has nothing to do, or very little to do, with that law itself. But anything different, or with gender identity conversations about pronouns now, everything's in that big question mark, because everyone's trying to figure out, can we have this conversation? But then we have a law that criminalizes the community. So everything is just in a big cloud of, I don't know what the heck is happening. So I thought, okay, let's do a podcast about that. But I knew going in that I didn't want to do anything that was going to be pointed at anyone. Because I think this was last year, right? So this is coming out of all the things that I've learned, and vulnerability, and also letting go a lot of these really cool ambitions that I had growing up. Like, I'm going to be the biggest star in the world. I'm going to interview the biggest celebrities in the world. And honestly, right now, even if I don't interview any more celebrities, I'm totally cool with it. I'm totally cool with it. It's just boiled down to, I realized that a lot of the hurt that I was feeling came from just a relationship. And it was that realization that actually all I really want is to be with someone, experience life together with this person, and travel. I want to eat some nice things. I want to have a place that we can come home to. I want to have money in the bank so that I can provide for you and we can experience life together. And that's it. It had very little to do with winning accolades or making millions of dollars and having an excess of all these things. So 2018 was very formative from then on, where I sort of realized that after all these years of chasing all these things, I've done a lot of these things, and I've also realized that they were people, and they're nice people, and there are also nice people everywhere, and there shouldn't be any difference between interviewing Britney Spears and the lady who's selling me chicken rice. And all of them, both of them have wonderful things that they have done, and both of them deserve praise. So I think with the podcast, I went in going, I want to do Queer Eye Singapore, because Queer Eye has been very, very sort of instrumental with my growth as well. But we can't do Queer Eye because no one's knocking on my door. Netflix is not knocking on my door saying, "Hey, we want you to be on the cast of Queer Eye for Singapore," right? So I thought, okay, if no one's knocking on your door, then you have to make it, right? You have to make the thing that you want to see. But we couldn't film in lockdown, right? Like outside, we can't go to someone's house for sure. So I thought, let's go back to the most intimate medium, right? Which is just speaking to each other, microphones, that's it. So I kind of, in my mind, produced the show. I want 2 other people to be on there with me, and we're going to have very wholesome conversations on life. Topic each episode, we're going to cover what it was like being gay in the army, the coming out experience. We're going to talk about media representation. We're just going to have a blast, and I told them, we're going to do this like this is the podcast we wish we had growing up, where it would have been really formative if we had listened to this growing up, or if we had recorded this growing up. And it's going to be very positive, very wholesome. We're not here to challenge anyone or be angry at anyone. We're just here to share stories, which for a long time, a lot of people have just been, can we even? And you know what this is like as well, where for so many years of your life, you have to fight for the right to have a spotlight on you, to have a microphone put in front of you, to have a stage. You have to earn that stage. And the incredible thing now is that we've kind of broken that system where you can purchase a microphone at an affordable price. You can figure out how to set it up by just watching a YouTube video. You can actually just record music from your room and become a superstar. You can just take your clothes off and put your video out there and become a star as well and make lots and lots of money. So we've kind of broken all these things that we thought we had to do, where you have to go to law school in order for you to make this much money. Whereas today you just need to have messed up stuff happen to you, or you do messed up stuff, and then you just hire a good PR person and you turn that into something else. And then you also kind of realize how overrated a lot of things that you thought life was supposed to be about is. So now I'm at that place where I'm kind of like, I've seen a few things, I've experienced a few things, I'm happy with the life that I've lived so far. Now let me just put a lot of focus on what I really want to have more of in my life.
And that thing that you're talking about, what you want to have really more in your life, that was having that relationship with someone and being able to share experiences.
Yeah. I have a boyfriend now, which is really nice. Yeah,
That's awesome, man.
Since the breakup in 2018, so this is the first time I'm in a relationship since then, and it took a long time, and a lot has happened, and to be able to, we just passed our first month yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yesterday was our first month in a relationship, and we were dating before that. So to have a relationship right now and be a part of it, and it's a lot of we went into it laying down all the things we want and we don't want, which is very different from how I used to do things, right? I used to rush into things and just be whirlwind romance, and this was a lot of, we're not going to do this because we don't want to do this. So it's I'll give you an example, we're not following each other on social media, right? Because I just told him there's so many times before where I've dated someone and I'm freaking out over, are they watching my stories? Are they watching my posts? Are they liking my posts? Why are they liking someone else's post? Knowing that this is me, I don't want this for us. Right. I'm not gonna look at your Instagram. You're not gonna look at my Instagram. You just tell me how your day is. All right, and we don't have to text every single hour. I just need to have a good morning from you and a good night. And if we can meet, that's great. If we can't, that's totally fine. I just would certain things. I just want a good morning and a good night. That's all. I just want to know you're okay in the morning. I want to know you're okay and you had a good day. That's it. So we have all these little things that is working for us, and it's also so intimate and it's so close, and we can't do any fancy things right now. We're in a mini lockdown, so we can't go out to dinner. So a lot of our dates have just been me at his place, his at mine, and we're just cooking dinner and we're in flip flops and it's watching movies, and that's it. It's super, super wholesome. So I have a feeling, I genuinely feel for anyone who has just gotten a relationship in the past year or so, where the world's in this sort of pandemic phase, I really truly think that our honeymoon period will stretch, because I cannot wait to travel with him, you know? I cannot wait to travel with him. And before, it would be like, oh, I like someone, we're going to Bali. Now it's like, I like someone, so now I'm going to be contained with you for a year, and we're going to get to know you more, and we're just going to do really simple things, like just going for a jog around the neighborhood, and then someday we'll get to take our trip, and we're going to plan that trip. So it's a very, very different kind of relationship that I'm in right now, and I'm very, very proud of what we have. It brings me so much joy. It really, yeah.
Yeah, no, it sounds awesome. What I'd like to kind of on that point is that obviously it's been a while. I remember we caught up. Maybe it was 2018 where we had some chicken rice, and we were talking about these things that you're talking about when you were having that trouble with the relationship and you go into therapy, all that. I'm curious to know, like, what kind of insights or what kind of insights did you get during that process, and what did you have to do for yourself to basically be in a place where you can be in a healthy, relationship now?
It took a long time. I know, like, you kind of look at it and you think like, oh, it's maybe like 2-3 years. That's not really a long time. But I try not to measure as much how I feel about certain things based on like actual time. I think of like the events that have happened, which is like sort of a different way of looking at time, right? It's the same thing for my partner and I. We haven't been together for a very long time, but what we do with that time is sort of, I would say, it's more qualitative than quantitative. I feel qualitative over quantity, so like quality over quantity, qualitative, not quantitative. When it comes to time, I view it that way as well. So it was a lot of going to therapy, a lot of conversations with myself, a lot of books that I've read, a lot of audiobooks that I fall asleep to listening every single night. I need to wake up to an audiobook so that if I happen to have a bad dream, because I get a lot of dreams, and if I wake up from a bad dream, I need to wake up to a comforting voice. So I need to hear like Eckhart Tolle in the background. You know, I need to hear Oprah Winfrey. I need to hear Michelle Obama. I need to hear all these things, just little things like that, just to when I wake up to something, because I suffer from PTSD from a couple of things. So I need to wake up and remember that everything is okay. So these things are important, and I think with also going back into dating, I also made a lot of mistakes. So it wasn't like I went to therapy and I'm reading all these books and then the next person I meet that I'm interested in or is interested in me, it's going to be incredible. It wasn't. I remember when I started dating again, or allowed myself to date again, there was this guy that I was going out with who was an absolute sweetheart, but I was so mean to him. Because I was also reading all these books about how, you fight for yourself and red flags are all there for this person. You got to run from this person. You focus on yourself and not. So I became really hard to care for because I would view this person as other, and I would hold myself to a standard. So I messed up as well. There was, it was a lot of trial and error, a lot of trying to implement and apply a lot of things that I've learned at figuring out what works for me at what time and stage of our dating, and also to be aware of what I was feeling, because I was also very inconsistent with my emotions. So like another term that I've recently learned, and it must have been like maybe Tuesday, I think, when I journaled this, which is emotion regulation. This is something that I've been practicing doing, but I only realized there's an actual term for this, because I would rate how I'm feeling and check in with my emotions and test my emotions and not just sort of be impulsive, because the truth is, we had this conversation earlier on about pop culture and how it kind of like framed everything for me. It also taught me a lot about the world, and there would always be a quote that would mean something, which would then result to me doing something. So, for example, it would be like, if you want something, you go get it. If you're feeling it, it's in your heart, go do it, go chase it. It's the right thing to do, right? So it also then fed a lot of very unhealthy, impulsive behavior that I was then making, when it comes to decisions. Because I would remember, oh, this character did that in that movie and that was okay. Or another example is Big Fish, that film with Ewan McGregor, directed by Tim Burton, where it's about a son who's very angry at his father for telling him all these stories about his life when they're not real. And the beauty of it was that he wanted to shield his son from the ugliness of the world, so he tells him these fantastical stories, and that way when he passes away, he only remembers these stories. And it may be beautiful on film, and it may be something that we can look at and adore, but when I'm growing up and I'm watching a movie like that, then I took that as, oh, it's okay to lie. It's okay to just keep telling lies, because if it sounds nice in my head and it makes them feel excited about something that isn't true, it's okay. At least they feel joy at that moment. So I started lying a lot. So it's a lot of learning stuff, but it's also a lot of unlearning stuff in the past couple of years, where I had to unlearn a lot of the things that I learned from the media or things that I consumed and from, I don't know, a lot of different aspects of it. But there was so many things that didn't work out, and it took a lot of reflection and really just getting with the dirt and in the mud and just sort of like tug of warring with everything to get to where I am now. And I'm sure I'm in the future I'll say that about what I'm doing right now in my life, you know. So yeah, everything is just little decisions, one thing at a time. I'm trying to just figure things out as I go along.
Well, it's great that you've been able to consistently work on it. You've obviously done pretty much in every part of your life. You've always the daily grind or going through the process.
Yeah.
Just coming back to the podcast and SG Boys and sexuality, there was something that I recall that was that kind of grabbed the headlines in Singapore, was when you got asked to speak at TEDx.
Yeah.
And something happened and you pulled out of it. And I thought that was very courageous of you to take a stand. Do you mind just sharing a little bit about what happened at that time?
Yeah. This happened in 2019. So imagine like 2018 was when that big horrible thing happens in your life, and then you immediately go into survival mode and you're fighting for yourself and you're watching all these TED Talks and you're listening to all these podcasts and all these, you're just hungry for better days, right? And then you always kind of, in that period, think, oh, maybe someday I'll do a TED Talk from this whole situation. And then it actually presents itself. And the TED Talk becomes, the TED Talk happens to be on the same date a year after when that tragic kind of sort of devastating thing happens to you in your life, or how you feel, right? You feel like, then you start to romanticize it. You think, oh, the universe is showing me that it is possible to get better, and I'm supposed to now look at this as this was the silver lining, and I'm supposed to grow and heal and survive and then do this TED Talk. And then on the TED Talk day itself at night, I'm supposed to perform in front of thousands of people at Pink Dot, which is our annual sort of pride and protest parade, right? Well, that's a lot of peace. And we met up, me and the organizers, and they were also the student organizers for this TEDx talk in the school. And they had known about me from the post that I was putting up on social media, sort of documenting the whole process of going to therapy and the books that I was reading and sharing poems and reflections of each day and what I was going through. So they knew what I was going to talk about, which was sort of my sexuality, and what happened on that day itself, and that journey up to where I am right now a year later. So they knew what that was. They just I even did a rehearsal the week before, and I did the whole talk. Unfortunately, it was the night before I was told that the school or the teachers or they wanted me to change the script. They wanted me to change the pronouns of boyfriend to girlfriend. They wanted me to exclude parts about my sexuality and just focus on how life is awesome. And I could not do that because, first of all, the talk was about embracing your true self and loving who you are, and I was going to be the first one to do that talk in that whole lineup, the first one to open the series. And I also owed it to myself and my story, because I've been watching all these TED Talks and they've been so beneficial for me. I cannot allow myself, knowing that I have all this anxiety, that I will, for the rest of my life, go back to the first ever TED Talk as something that was a complete lie, or I held back on all these things and I ended up just telling everyone life is awesome when it wasn't. I can't share with you how broken I was, but I can tell you I'm not going to go up on stage and just hold up a bunch of motivational quotes on posters. I'm not going to do that, because that was not what TED Talks were to me, so I'm not going to do it to someone else. So I told them, I'm going to have to pull out. I'm sorry, I'm not going to have to pull out. And then I went on the Pink Dot stage that night, and I shared that with everyone, and I wrote a post about it on Instagram. And even when I did that, I remember being very careful about what I was writing. I made it really clear, because I become friends with the people who are organizing the TED Talk, and I knew that it was not a decision that was up to them. It was not something that they had called for, the students, right? And I didn't want to get them in trouble, because I could understand, after all these years in sort of media and all that, what can get people in trouble, and knowing where the line is and not crossing it, but still being able to do work by not completely crossing the line. So I was looking out for them, and I remember writing on that post as well, I'm not angry at anyone. I just need to explain that I've been documenting this whole process of what it's like to write a TED Talk script. I've been sharing with you, I'm at a coffee house, I'm writing the script. I don't know if I should include this or not include this. And people like you have bought tickets to my TED Talk, and all of a sudden I didn't show up. I just want you to know it wasn't that I'm a no-show. This is what has happened. And it became a big viral story. And it was on Vice, it was on all these newspapers and stuff, and then I had to deal with the repercussions of that with my job, where now my sexuality is known to the nation, and I still have to come to work to host a radio show on a public, family-friendly platform. So it was tough. It was I shared this on the podcast recently, that actually I broke down that day when I went back to work, because I just felt I thought this day was supposed to just be a big full circle moment, and that's it. I never have to deal with this anymore. I didn't think it would require more work. So the podcast is linked to what then became the TED Talk, which was sort of like a marker for me, and then I had to keep going. I didn't realize I had to continue with this whole journey or whatever. I thought, that's it. I've done the TED Talk, and now I can go do music again or something, and I just don't have to worry about anything to do with this anymore, with my mental health or whatever. I'm done with all that self-help. I'm just going to live now. I'm going to be in cruise control. But apparently not. And things got quite ugly with the reports that came out, and it just became a big mess. It just became a lot of what was then printed on the papers was not what my experience was with the people organizing the TED Talks. And also bearing in mind they're students, and if I were to say something in response to what is printed, or to clarify on something, it would then keep the conversation going, but at the same time it will also keep this fire burning, which could then also hurt my career and hurt these students. So I just decided to bow out and not do anything, and just left. I kind of left that for a while, and I went to Bali, and I shaved my head, and then I started writing music again, and wasn't as active on social media as much anymore. I just kind of wanted to step away from it, because I remember at that point, I was reading this book by Katy Byron, I think. Katy Byron?
Yeah, Katy Byron, yep. The Work?
Yeah, The Work, right? Do the work, do the work.
The 4 questions.
Loving What Is, right? I think her book was about Loving What Is, and she said something about how defense is the first act of war or something like that, where the moment you start defending yourself, you're now going to be preparing yourself for war. And I was like, should I defend myself and say what actually happened, or... no point. I didn't come all the way to start having a very public feud with corporations or with the country or all that. It's up in the air. People will now have these conversations. I'll leave it to them. So I kind of bowed out. Sorry, super long story. But the podcast.
I'm just curious about this whole process because I've had situations myself where I have been attacked wrongly or whatever, and I felt
right.
And I kind of had that same position where I don't want to get into this conversation and give power to this conversation when it's totally not true. And that's something I still struggle with, when to know when to stand up and when to back down and just let it go. So I'm curious, in your situation, by you stepping back, did that story just die? Is that what happened? Or how did that kind of play out?
Yeah.
Where you didn't want to enter that?
Yeah, unfortunately, it just died out, and I didn't want to enter that tussle because I was exhausted. I just remember feeling so exhausted by that point, emotionally exhausted. Yeah, and I knew that it could get messy if I start calling out. And I just didn't want to do that. I just thought, 5 years ago, I would do it. 5 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, let's fight. Let's go. Let me tell you how it really is. Let me spill the tea. At that point, I was like, this is not the behavior of any of the people that I look up to in these TED Talks or in these podcasts. Oprah wouldn't do something like that. Michelle Obama wouldn't do something like that. She would say, when they go low, we go high. We just let it be. So I didn't want to become the person that I was not meant to be and not who I was shaping up to be. I'm not going to let this make me that person, but I also didn't know what I was going to be. So the best thing to do in these kind of situations is step away from what I've learned, right? To just step away and just let it be. And you did your bit. You said your piece. If people want to perceive things a certain way and then I made a mistake of reading comments. So there are all these comments about, he just wants to do this TED Talk about gays to spread the gay agenda, or he's hunting for gay men to sleep with by doing this TED Talk. So it was all this stuff where you just completely misunderstood, but then at the same time you kind of just look at it as, I guess this is the world. These people view me not as a person; they view me as the story of the day. And I'm a character now in their version of whatever show they're watching, and they can make whatever comment they want to. It's like yelling at a screen. So I just need to not take it so personal and ask myself, do I have the energy to engage? And if I don't want to engage, that's it. I'm not engaging. So that's it. I pulled out, and then I just spent some time away from all this. And the community was incredible as well, where on the flip side, we had a lot of people reach out to me, people that I never met before, ask me out to coffee, to check in on me, say that, if you ever need a space to do a talk, you can come here. If you ever want to work on something together, you can come here. And I'm so grateful for that, because we didn't always have this. Especially now doing the podcast and meeting people who are from an older generation in the LGBTQ plus community. You hear a little bit of what things were like before, and you couldn't just call out stuff that happened to you. You didn't have, right now, if someone were to sort of slap me in the face for being gay, as messed up as that is, I can also trust that my brothers and sisters have my back. You feel like you don't stand by yourself anymore. You feel like you're standing with an entire tribe, an army, right? And it's a very wonderful feeling to hold people accountable, but to also feel like for a long time when you've been sort of sidelined and treated as the other, now the others are coming together, saying that we're not going to allow this to happen anymore. And so I believe in that, a little bit of a bit of aggression and a bit of but I also believe in a lot of not becoming what they've done to you. So that's what the podcast is about. It's really about, even in sort of these tense moments, how to choose love, how to let go a little bit, how to fight at the right time and knowing when to do it, and learning to love and learning to forgive, which is something that I think is also something I'm learning, and I hope more people learn every single day, which is to forgive. Because I think in the past couple of years, have also been we have a lot of power with social media. We can call out a lot of things, and all that is important for sure to hold people accountable. But then we haven't had that conversation about when do we forgive? Can we forgive? So that's what I'm hoping to do with, say, this podcast, where we have these kind of conversations. Yeah,
I think that's a very important point where you just brought up there in terms of being able to forgive, and yes, you can call people out, and I think that kind of feeds into this whole situation, which I feel is not very helpful, is this whole cancel culture. I'm curious to what you feel about that whole movement. That
it's
happens.
Scary because we all think we're all going to get canceled. Every one of us, and every one of us should get canceled and should not get canceled, because all of us have said really ridiculous things in the past. Every single one of us have said ridiculous things in the past because, and you really look at it, it's because we didn't have that education of what is the right way to be. How do you act when you're on a date? What is correct behavior when you're in bed with someone? Or what is correct behavior when you have staff that is working under you? How do you navigate all these things? We haven't had that kind of education. And so a part of me is trying to look at it that way, and how we can improve the system so we can avoid things like this in the future. I think holding people accountable is very important. But I also think it's important to sort of understand what created this situation for this person, and there is a system that we're supposed to trust. If they commit a crime, they go to jail, or they face the consequences for this, and we let that do its thing. But there's also a level of, this person should still be allowed to eat and breathe air and learn and grow. I believe in rehabilitation. There are many points of my life where I thought I met a dead end because of something that I've done. And I would be on my knees praying for a second chance, that I can relearn what's in front of me and what I've done, so that I can be better. Because I always remember saying this prayer: I have more to give, I have more to offer. And I truly believe every single one of us, if we want to, we can have more to offer. So with cancel culture, I really hope that, I've known people who have been canceled, and it doesn't make what they have said or done right, but all of us have said and done things wrong, and we continue to do so every single day. And we are supposed to talk about it. That the more we kind of sweep it under the rug and not have conversations, that's where it piles up. And that's when you think you can get away with something, because it's not about getting away. So it's you think you can behave this way or do these things, and think that's okay and get away with it, without checking yourself and realizing that this is not right, that you're causing harm, and instead of loving and being kind, you're doing all these things. So that's why I think it is important. But I also think it's important to remember that they are also people, and they deserve to be given a second chance if they want to grow and learn. And I really think that is important. I don't think it's good to live your life worrying about, because we always say, no one is perfect, but we never actually act that way. Yeah. We say we're only human when we're here to make excuses for something. And we always say, no one is perfect, but we seem to put that bar for every single thing in our lives. Like, we want you, if I hire you for something, you have to do the perfect job in order for you to get this paycheck. If I'm in a relationship with you, you have to be the perfect person. I have to be the perfect one for you. It's a lot of perfect, but the moment we mess up, we're like, oh my gosh, I'm only human. So we need to start treating each other as human. We need to start treating each other as we are people that will fuck up and continue, sorry for swearing, that will continuously mess up as well. So now, how do we create a community where we are forgiving, and we're able to teach each other things, and we're able to say that you don't have to hide if this is what you're feeling. Let me try to help you with what you're feeling, and try to understand how we can, because you don't want to feel this way, do you? So I really think that is important. And the moment we need to stop viewing each other as other. Yeah. I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. As we, all right. I think this is this is a good point where we can, like what you're talking about here is a good juncture to talk about what you're currently up to and, you know, where are you moving towards in the future. I think you've already kind of planted some seeds there. I know that you mentioned that you're now focusing more on your music. Is that right?
Yeah. I'm working on maybe a new album. I don't know. I've written a bunch of things, and the last album that I had, which was my first album, was very dark, and it was also very experimental, and it was me taking the things that I was going through in 2018 and turning that whole experience into an album. And now I want to do music that is reflective of where I am right now, and it's anything but dark. It's very colorful. It's very vibrant.
It's like your last song you released.
All I want to do, which
I really like that track.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very, very colorful when you hear it. It's very bright, very fun. But I mean, if you read the lyrics, it's all about anxiety. It's about what I feel, which is whenever I'm in a situation where I just don't know what to do, I feel like I want to disappear and I feel like I don't belong. But I thought it would be kind of funny to take that and make it a really fun pop song where you can dance to it, because that's how I appear on the surface all the time. And I'm a Gemini in Gemini season, so this is like so I think I'll be doing that a lot more on this album, where I have fun with it and allow myself to have fun, but I also want to go into sort of the little things that I feel sometimes as well, or the things that sadden me, and still be able to find a little bit of shine in that, I think. Yeah.
What do you think will be what's your drive now to produce music?
To have fun. I don't know. It's not to win a Grammy. It's not to get a #1 hit. It's not to anything. Like, I think before I thought, like, you release a song, it's as long as it's good, it's going to go to #1, and then you kind of like learn about how the music industry works and what are the kind of walls in front of you, what you have to do or what you don't have to do. Everything's a gamble. It's a bit messy, and it takes a lot of money to also get to where you want to be, and there's all these things, and I need to sort of remind myself that I'm not doing music to get a Grammy or to have someone tell me that I'm awesome. I'm doing music because I like doing music. I like listening to music, and I like to be able to say that, oh my gosh, I created a song too, and yeah, it's part of it is living my fantasy. Part of it is also taking a lot of things that I'm feeling and creating something from it, like using whatever pain that I was feeling in 2018 and using it as fuel to create art and be able to listen to it and be like, oh yeah, no one is going to know the story. They're going to hear the lyrics and hear the rhythm and be like, yeah, this is a badass, super produced song that's like got all these cool, intricate elements to it, but they're not going to really understand, and no one ever will really understand the music like I do, because it came from me, and that's all that matters sometimes. Sometimes you just need to write and you put it out there and it's done.
Gotcha. Now I know you're in Singapore, and most people in Singapore don't drive. You don't have a car, right?
No, I don't have a car.
But if you did have a car,
okay,
what would your bumper sticker have on it?
Oh my god. Can you actually put stuff on it?
Yeah, I mean that was a
thought...
big thing back in the day, or even now I see cars and they've got bumper stickers, you know, little whatever that reveals like a bit of personality of the person behind the wheel.
Okay, so I'm going to be completely honest. I'm not a big car guy, but if I were to drive, it would just be me viewing a car as speakers on wheels. Like, I'm just going to be blasting music more than anything. I don't really care too much about the color of the car or the...
Oh, no, not the color of the car. You know what a bumper sticker is?
That's like the car plate?
No. Okay.
What's a bumper sticker?
It's basically like people will put a brand or a quote on it, and they'll stick it on their car. It could be usually...
Oh, no. No. I don't like any kind of sticker on my car. No. I want to keep it as clean as possible.
Me too. Okay, let me take a step back. It's really just a metaphor in terms of what would be if you had a message on your forehead. What would that be?
Oh.
What would be a message that you feel for you right now that you would want people to get?
Wow. I think I'll say something like, I say I'm fine. I say I'm okay. And maybe I am. I don't know. How are you? Yeah.
A little conversation.
Yeah. It's like, I say I'm fine. I say I'm okay. And maybe I am. I don't know. How are you?
Could be a chorus for a song.
Maybe. But yeah, it's not that I'm not okay underneath. I mean, there are definitely times where I definitely felt that way, where I was always on the surface like I'm okay and I'm not okay. But I also think I actually am okay. But I also don't know what okay is, because I don't know how I'm supposed to actually be every day. Right? You know how rice is supposed to taste. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel all the time.
Yeah. No, I think I like that. That's kind of bit of don't always take everything at surface level, and not always necessarily. You don't have to necessarily always be sure of how you're feeling or where you are, but it's still okay.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm listening to you, but I'm also texting you because right after this, I have to do a photo shoot where I'm gonna be wearing a pride flag and going to the Merlion in Singapore, and you'll be doing a photo shoot, but it also is raining outside, so I don't know what is happening next.
Okay, cool. What's this for? Is this a special promoting something, or?
This is my regular Saturday. It's just put a lot of eyeshadow on and let's do a photo shoot outside. No, this is for Pride Month this year, for the SG Boys podcast. At the moment, it's been tough to record because of we're in like a mini lockdown.
Right.
So we're trying to do more social media stuff. So we're trying to organize something today where we go out and do a couple of photos at iconic landmarks in Singapore, and we'll be dressed all real colorful. We just gotta be careful about the things that we wear and how we present ourselves, I think, when we go out, just to make sure that we're safe. Yeah.
All right. That sounds good. All right. Well, is there anything else that you'd want to share before we wrap this all up? It's been a very colorful journey.
Is there anything I want to share? I feel like I've shared so much.
You've dumped it all.
Yeah. I've kind of, yeah. If you want to, I want to hear your thoughts. If for the person listening on the things that I've shared with Derrick today, the conversations that we've had, and then if it sort of brings up something in your life that you want to tell me about you, or you have like a realization of something in your life, I mean, I would love to hear what that is for you as well. I'm on Instagram at Joshua Simon XL. And you can listen to the SG Boys podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts.
All right, cool. We'll put all the links to how to contact Josh and those links to the podcast in the show notes, which will be at the website livinglit.life. So thanks so much again, Josh, for your time today. We've had a very, very wonderful conversation. I appreciate your time and for sharing.
Thank you for doing this. It's very lit.
All right, thanks, Josh. We'll catch you again next time.
All right, see ya.
Well, that wraps up today's episode of Lit. A huge thank you to Josh for joining us and sharing his fascinating journey in media, music, and life so far. I trust now you get why I wanted Josh on the show. If you enjoyed our little chat, do like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss out on any new episodes. Plus, as Josh mentioned, we would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. It really helps keep the conversation going. Be sure to follow Josh on Instagram at Joshua Simon XL and find him on his podcast at the SG Boys. I've included all the links in the show notes at livinglit.life and in the description below. Next episode, I have another brilliant and colorful human being in the form of Arunditha Emmanuel. She's a poet, a singer-songwriter, coach, shamanic healer, and just all-round beautiful being. Be prepared to open up and go deep within. You don't want to miss out. Don't forget, if you receive some goodness and want to help spread that goodness, please leave a review and share. It really helps get the message out. Much appreciation in advance. I'm Derrick Sue. Thanks again for tuning in. And until next time, stay lit. See ya.
This has been a Living Lit.life production, copyright 2021, all rights reserved. To join me as a guest on the show or for sponsorship and partnership inquiries, please email hello@livinglit.life. And don't forget, stay lit. See ya.